This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm joined all the way from Georgia by the most wonderful Jill Bucaro from Wellness Riot. How are you today? And that is a smashing t-shirt you have on there.
Thank you. I'm feeling good. I'm boosting my immunity with even with my clothing.
Good, 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 good. So today
Yeah.
we're going to be discussing a concept that you kind of threw at me the other week, which I find fascinating. The idea that perhaps we're not going into so much going into flu season, but we're going into a season where we take perhaps a little bit less care of our bodies.
Yes. So flu season, I think most of us know that being the winter months, some
Yeah.
idea of November, maybe to February, and the idea that we get, sicker. And it's not just the flu, but it's really like common cold, any sort of symptoms, but they seem to cluster or,
Yes.
rear their head more in the winter months. So we call it flu season. I think with that idea that, there's more germs or it's something we can't control. It's just
Mhm.
flu season. And while there are some things that, just happen during the winter months, there's actually a lot that we do that, either we can change or we can support in a different way that would make flu season maybe not as terrible or not
Mhm.
as severe, for ourselves.
It's interesting because when you planted that seed in my brain, I was thinking about, flu season. It's when kids start getting colds at school and things. And then I was thinking, hmm, Halloween. And then just that massive influx of crappy candy, sweets and things. And
Yeah.
perhaps that's linked to it. But yeah, I'd like you to expand upon this because I find it actually quite fascinating.
Isn't it? So there are some things that happen, in the winter months that we can't control.
Hmm.
Most of us, there's cooler temperatures at some level, depending on where we live.
Yeah.
It's drier air. The sun goes down, earlier, so we're less exposed to, things like vitamin D, which can
Hmm.
help our immune
Yep.
system. Cooler temperatures, those pathogens can survive a little bit longer. So there are some things that do happen in the winter months that tend to, lean towards maybe a lowered immune system or just the availability and like presence of the bacteria or viruses and things like that. But there's so much we can control. So to your point, Halloween, the average child consumes 3 cups of sugar around Halloween. 3 cups of sugar. Um,
Oh,
it's
sure.
7,000 calories,
Yeah.
from sugar. So that's, for us here in the US, and I think,
Yeah.
minus Thanksgiving for, a lot of areas, in the world, this really starts this season of
Yep. Yeah.
candy, heavy foods, sweets, treats,
Alcohol.
alcohol,
Yeah.
stress,
Oh,
lack of
yeah.
sleep,
Yeah.
all of those things, really are heightened in these months. So, is it flu season or is it like change of behavior season, that like
Right.
leans towards all of these things are suppressing our immune system. Refined sugars are suppressing our immune system. Elevated stress, which, a majority of people claim their stress is higher around the holidays, due
Sure.
to, I mean,
Yes.
you name it, like anything and everything. Um, the staying indoors, or the less exposure to sunlight, is less vitamin D. That's has to, has a role to play in our immune system. The alcohol consumption that tends to come along with holidays, that lowers
I
our
know
immune
all
system.
about
So
that. Yeah.
all of these things, really from October to like, the beginning of January, it's just like boom, boom, boom. We
Yeah.
get like very little rest in between those, holidays that kind of like run along the end of the year.
So we've spoken about boosting one's immune system many
Hmm.
times over the months, the years.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the particular steps that one could take to not to flu-proof yourself or cold-proof
Hmm.
yourself, but what can one do to kind of mitigate perhaps some of the excesses of this season?
Yeah. So one is food related, and anytime you can move away from like the processed, refined, packaged sugar, seed oils, chemicals, all that packaged stuff to whole and unprocessed food, you're going in the right direction because
Yeah.
all of that is good for our immune system. And all of that, sugar stuff is truly, biologically suppresses our immune system. So food is the biggest thing. And it's not to say like on Halloween you couldn't have some candy, on Thanksgiving you couldn't indulge, on Christmas you couldn't have some sweet treats, but it tends to be all those months. So anytime in between, if you can kind of like lean towards those whole and unprocessed foods, those foods that support your microbiome, like fiber, fermented foods, things like that, those are all going to help. We're finding out more and more every day, like what a role our microbiome plays in our immune system and our immune support. So that's, the first thing is to, include like a diet that's, more geared towards whole and unprocessed foods rather than those packaged and processed and high sugar foods.
Now,
Um,
less related to food, but sleep is also very important here, right?
100%. Yeah. And sleep and stress kind of tend to go hand in hand.
Mhm.
So, if sometimes we'll lose sleep because we're stressed. Sometimes we don't sleep and then we get stressed.
Yeah.
But both are really, really important to strengthen our immune system. So, I mean, 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night is typically best. Everybody's a little bit different, but most of us know there's some things we can do to get better sleep. A dark room, a cool room, a quiet room, no screen time, no caffeine, no big meals, before bed. So anything you can do to support your sleep is going to be helpful. And then again, that ties into the stress. So anything you can do to, manage your stress, anything you do, you can take deep breaths, not overschedule yourself. I mean, we do that constantly, especially if you're a parent, but really anybody, it's like office parties and planning
Yeah.
trips and
Mhm.
traveling and gifts and what am I going to buy and all this kind of stuff. So meditation, deep breathing, getting outside, and that kind of leans into something else you can do, which is moving your body.
Sure.
Physical activity can help support a healthy immune system. Plus, it gets us outside, can get us outside and get that sunlight. So those are some things that, we can do, to support a healthy immune system.
Now, you mentioned traveling there, traveling something that many people
Mhm.
do during the holidays. And
Yeah.
I have discovered I generally eat pretty healthily, but whenever I'm traveling, I tend to eat absolute crap because it's almost all that's on offer. And
Yeah.
that goes for whether that's international travel or even a road trip.
Yes.
Because the stuff that you find at the side of the road is 99% absolute rubbish. So how does one mitigate that?
Okay. So the biggest thing is to plan. Like
Right.
the biggest thing is so we just took a road trip for Thanksgiving and it
Mhm.
was 12 hours one way and 12 hours the other way. And we had to stop in the middle. So we were on the road a long time. So we planned. So we brought snacks, we brought, healthy beverages. And we mapped out places that we could stop. So even in, where we drove through Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Missouri,
Oh.
not known for the healthiest
Yeah,
food
yes, yeah,
in
yeah.
the country. But we still were able to find a place that had smoothies, that had juices. In Birmingham, Alabama, there's a Whole Foods, so we could just grab a few things.
Right.
So
Yep.
planning is the big thing. And when you're planning, snacks or things like that, protein, healthy fats, and then if you eat grains, whole grains. Those are going to be like the key things. So like beef jerky, they have vegan jerky, hard-boiled eggs, nuts, seeds. Protein bars, I say, but be very careful because some of them are just as sugary as like a
Yeah.
candy bar.
Yeah.
Fruit, veggies, those kinds of things are, easy to pack typically, like if you're in a road trip, and even if you're going through the airport, you can have some snacks with you. That to me is like one of the most important things because when you get desperately hungry is when you have to make terrible decisions like, well, we're at the gas
Yeah.
station, well, we're at fast food. So if you can prepare a little bit, for how long you're going to travel, that I think is really helpful. And so many of the places, depending on where you're going, but Airbnbs or VRBOs, if you're staying at a friend's or family member's house, but even a lot of hotels now have refrigerators, a little microwave or something like that. So you can bring a cooler, even
Right.
of things if you're on a road trip. There's just a lot more options now. And even those crappy convenience stores sometimes will have things like nuts, bananas, apples, seeds, things like that. So you can, you have to be careful, but there are more healthy options. Like I'm surprised, like I said, we just went on a road trip and I was in there. I'm like, oh, all right, well, I can eat this and I can eat that. And it was, almonds and cashews and a
Mhm.
banana. And I was like, okay, that's actually fine. So planning is huge. And then, really just being willing to take a few things with you, I think, so that you don't find yourself in that place of desperation and starvation. And that's when you start making those decisions that are, pretty terrible.
I discovered something about flying recently. I was doing some experimentation with plane food, and I've always had issue with. Remember when I first started flying? I thought it was fantastic. It was just such a novelty, and I'd even get the first dish and then eat it really quickly and hide it, and then say try and get a second one. But those days are long gone. I can hardly eat anything on a plane now. But I
Yeah.
discovered something quite interesting a few months back. I was watching my blood sugars for a bit, and so I went down the options, and there was a diabetic meal that you can choose as a special meal, and it was the best meal I've had on a plane, including having flown first class a couple of times. And
Wow.
it was just a very simple piece of grilled salmon on
Hmm.
some really nice brown rice with just perfect amount of spicing, and the vegetables were all kind of crunchy and nice. And
Wow.
just that was on was that flying Air Austria, I think. Yeah, Austrian Air. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a
Yeah.
so if you happen to find yourself in the air, you may have to pretend that you have diabetes issues to get some nice plane food. Now we've
Yeah.
spoken many times before about the impact of alcohol upon the
Yeah.
body, and people do tend to drink more over the festive season, or many
Mhm.
people do. I think I'm probably about the same all year round, but you had mentioned before about alternating, your wine or your beer and water so that you're hydrating at the same time. There is actually a term for that now. I was reading about this the other day and thought you would find it. It is called zebra drinking.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Apparently,
that's a great term. I knew exactly what you meant.
yeah, yeah. But apparently it's all the rage amongst young people who still drink. So,
Yeah.
any other tips with regards to alcohol?
Yeah, I would say simplify. So
Right.
like wine, beer, distill like spirits with
Yep.
like a mixer like club soda or something like that. Like I think where we get into like where we exacerbate the problem is when we're having these really sugar laden drinks with like
Yeah.
cream and grenadine and all these like
Ooh.
mixers. I know. I'm like, ugh. And I
Not
think
my
that
bag, but yeah.
drinks have elevated where they're actually making drinks with like fresh rosemary
Yeah.
instead of like, so I think we're going in the right direction, but there's still a ton, like the chocolate martinis and the, things, the peppermint, whatever.
Yeah.
So if it were me and you wanted to drink, I would stick to the things that are like just pure and, like the wines, the spirits, the beer, and again, alternating it, I think, is probably the best thing, that you can do if you want to, indulge. The mocktails, though, are making such a like
Yeah.
an appearance. And I think also there's not that, social stigma
Yeah.
as well with like not wanting to drink. I think more and more people are like, that's just not what I do. So those options I think are more fun and make you feel like you're still part of the atmosphere and the
Yeah.
social scene, but you don't even have to indulge. So I would say also just, listen to your body. And if you don't feel like it, like don't feel the need to.
So I had a question for you in closing, which kind of wraps up this segment quite well. It's a question I realize I've never asked you before.
Oh no.
No, no, it's nothing awkward. What is your recommendation with all of the experience you have in all of this um, for the best hangover cure?
Oh gosh. So I like activated charcoal.
Yes, you said that you take that the night before, right?
Yes, you can take it the next day. It'll soak up anything else
Okay.
that's in there. So that's my favorite. And then
Okay.
I eat, I don't know if this is like, this isn't the healthy Jill talking. This is just like we gotta get it
Okay.
done talking.
Yeah.
But like foods that you would think are like absorbent, like breads,
Yeah.
like crackers, like things like that, that's going to kind of suck up. And that's really the role that the charcoal plays too,
Yes.
is to like absorb the stuff that's making you feel like junk, and hydrate, hydrate, hydrate,
Mhm.
hydrate. Like I think that you can prevent to some extent those hangovers by doing that preventatively, the night before,
Yeah.
staying hydrated.
You
But
can
yeah,
force
I'm
yourself
I'm a
to drink 3 pints of water
yeah,
before you go to bed. Doesn't
yes.
I set out I actually sometimes pour myself 3 pints of water and then wake up in the morning and they're still sitting there. I haven't touched them at all. So
That didn't work.
no. Well, Jill Bucaro, thank you very much for joining us once again at Good Food Revolution. Have a
Mhm.
happy and safe holidays, and we will catch up very soon.
Sounds good. Happy holidays to you too.
Excellent. Take care, Jill. Bye for now.
All right.